Zeph.
Morning, morning, Greg. How you going?
Good, good. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
We brought the Melbourne downpour of rain here.
Okay, got a nice day here in Perth. Finally, it's lined up.
Okay, hang on a second. Just wait. Hi, everybody. Just wait another minute or so. Okay, just one more moment. Sean will be joining me too. Okay.
Hey, Zeph.
Hi, Sean. How you going?
Good and you?
Okay,
Very well,
everybody.
thank
Thanks
you.
for joining us. Appreciate it. We know it's a tough market out there, but there are still some very good success stories, and companies still have to carry on with their activities. And that's why we're excited to talk today with Zeph from Tesoro Gold, because the company just completed a capital raise. Sean, and maybe you'll ask about that to Zeph. But we are still extremely excited. Chilean gold, especially the Tesoro land holdings, we think Zeph are fantastic, and obviously we're putting our money where our mouth is on it as well. But let me just turn it over to Sean for a moment for everyone there, do a little bit of a change of pace.
Yeah, thought we'd just do it a bit differently today. And also we'll go a bit slower because there's not a lot of people on yet. I just wanted to ask you, Zeph, so it's a good time to speak about just the process of the capital raise. And I know with yours, there was a lot of work done behind the scenes, getting cornerstone investors in, changing brokers. What can you discuss? What can you tell the investors about how that was all organized and why, I guess, it took a little bit longer just to get it all done?
Yeah, sure. Look, I suppose with our resource and the recent resource update and the work and I guess the stage that the company's at, we're really in that transitional zone for growth now, based on continued resource expansion and ongoing studies to move towards feasibility studies. And in regards to the change of brokers, we actually got Shaws and Partners on board to lead the raise, and that the impetus from that really came out of one of their Chilean offices. They're affiliated with a large financial services group based in Switzerland now, and one of their other affiliates is actually a large Brazilian-based financial services company as well, who we've been talking to for some time, and then I guess it happened reasonably quickly that the Shaws guys out of Melbourne put their hand up to lead the raise and begin to support the company. So we saw that as a fairly good opportunity to transition from, I guess, where we had been to Shaws, who are obviously a much larger group and can provide further support for us going forward as the company continues to grow. In terms of the hard work that was done behind the scenes, particularly by the company, trying to shore up a lot of cornerstone support, a majority of this raise has gone to institutional investors. So we really wanted to come to market with this raise with a pretty much most of it completed,
Sure.
which was taken up by a number of institutional investors that are pretty bullish on not only Tesoro but obviously the gold space.
And
Can you mention who the investors are? Any of them going to be substantial?
I think the only one that I'll have to check though, and they're already an existing investor of ours, shareholder of ours, is Tribeca.
Yep.
And then we have a couple of smaller chunks that have come in through a couple of other instos, one of them actually out of the US as well. So, and that's been a market that we've been trying to break into for a while as well, and as evidenced by our recent OTC listing. So it's good to have those guys on board, and Tribeca particularly have supported the company for quite some time now.
And Zeph, do you think, I guess leading to, your assets in Chile, do you think that some of the international investors, frankly, just have a better understanding and feeling for that part of the world than maybe some of the Australians, excluding, notwithstanding Tribeca?
Yeah, look, I think certainly the North Americans do. Look, it's on the same time zone. They've been doing business through South America for a lot longer than Australian companies are. And look, to be honest, Australian companies in South America probably had a checkered past. So,
Right.
whereas the Canadians and North Americans have been, not only in the mining sector, but certainly agriculture and infrastructure, been investing in South America for a much longer time. It's their backyard, so to speak. So, and that's part of the thinking behind, I guess, the company really strongly marketing through North America,
Right.
and we continue to do so. Jeff McNamara, he's a co-founder and non-exec director. He's actually at PDAC now, and we're garnering a lot of interest out of that conference as well. So, look, we pretty optimistic we'll start to see some more money appear on our register out of North America.
Right. And for those of you that don't know, PDAC, it's pretty much the biggest mining conference in the world, held up in Toronto, and it's currently ongoing. So, that's certainly a great place to be. And Zeph, can you just remind everyone, you mentioned about their backyards. You've spent a lot of time in South America, so you certainly know the area. Can you just remind people about your history?
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually a geologist by background. I spent probably the first 10 years of my career in production in Western Australia, predominantly underground production, so gold and nickel. And I started my career off with Normandy Mining back in the day at Big Bell Gold Mine, which ultimately got bought by Newmont, the entire Normandy business. So during that time, I actually met Jeff McNamara at another gold mine called Bounty, and that was over 20 years ago. So Jeff's a geologist as well and co-founder of Tesoro. But I guess I transitioned out of production into more exploration and project development roles, and ended up in Brazil with a junior exploration company back in the early 2000s. And I actually did something not dissimilar to what we've done with Tesoro in terms of looking at the geology a little bit differently through a region and defining a new gold district based on a model that nobody else was looking for. And certainly with our Zorro, that's what we found. So I did that in Brazil, and during that time I met Sergio Uribe, who's also a co-founder of Tesoro, and he's Chilean, and he's our general manager in country. So I met Sergio around about 12 years ago during my travels in Brazil. Sergio had actually spent quite a bit of time in Australia. He worked in the very early days for Fortescue Metals, and he was part of the team that did the time and motion studies on the port and rail for the Cloudbreak mine. So he had a bit of an idea of how Aussies get about doing business and operate in the mining industry. He went back to Chile and he's quite entrepreneurial. And then I met him, and we sort of teamed up on a few things. We've done it, and I've known him for, as I said, over 12 years. We've done a number of things in Chile now, both privately and publicly, not only in the mining sector, but also agriculture, with sort of agricultural exporting out of Chile to other countries. So I'd spent a lot of time, obviously, on the ground in Chile, and I guess the impetus to form Tesoro came when we started to look at the geology a little differently through the coastal belt, and we wanted to find deposits that were of the scale and grade that a junior could take them through to development, and also in that coastal belt where you had good supporting infrastructure. So we looked at a whole bunch of stuff and looked at different areas and looked at the geology a little bit differently, and we came across our Zorro back in 2015, and it wasn't necessarily for sale at the time, but in 2017 managed to ink the deal to acquire just a small handful of concessions, and things have evolved obviously fairly rapidly since then, and we really think we got our hands on a new emerging gold district in Chile.
Yeah, and Zeph, I just want to point out for everyone, the point I wanted to make was, A, the team has been together for many years, and B, that this is not some foreign region to you by any stretch of the imagination. But now, turning more towards El Zorro, obviously that's your flagship. That's what we're all invested in. Can you just talk us through it a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, we penned the deal back in 2017, and Jeff McNamara had come out of a private equity company, and I was at a loose end myself, and Serge and I and Jeff put it together, and we funded the company privately for around 3 years, and did the first couple of rounds of drilling into it with our own money. So we'd sunk a little over 3 million Aussie dollars into it, and then took it to market in 2020. Those initial drill programs, I guess, really highlighted to us the geological opportunity in this region for what we were looking for. So our Zorro is unique for Chile. It's the first intrusive related gold system that's ever been found and defined in Chile. We did the original deal on 1,500 hectares of concessions. We now control over 600 square kilometres of concessions, covering around 60 kilometres of strike of what we think is a highly prospective belt for gold mineralisation. So this is, as I said, pretty unusual, particularly for the region. The region that we're in is copper dominated with big world-class IOCG deposits. So there's some famous ones there, Candelaria, which is operated by Lundin, Mando Verde, which is now operated by Mitsubishi, and then further to the east up in the Andes are predominantly big porphyry deposits and big gold epithermal style deposits. So we're right on the coast, and the geology changes a little bit. The rocks are a different age, and just nobody was looking there. So those initial drill holes really opened our eyes to what it could be, and we quickly scrambled to peg as much ground as we could over what we thought was the prospective belt. And that's some of our district targets that are emerging out of some of the work that the team's been doing on those since.
Right.
So obviously the only gold mineralisation that was known on the property at the time was at Tenera. So we've got gold over a much larger distance now at surface, and we're just systematically getting through those targets. But look, it really surprised us that of the, I suppose, the scale and grade that is emerging out of Tenera. So we're at that 1.1 million ounce mark now, but by the deposit is not closed off by any stretch of the imagination. And I guess that's part of the work plan with this capital raising, is to continue to expand that resource.
What about the grade? Like, it's not extremely high grade. Are you confident it can get a bit higher, or is that not really a concern?
Well, I think when you look at the grade, the actual grade is actually extremely high for an open pit mining scenario. So that global grade at a 0.3 cutoff, and I'll talk a bit about that as well, is 1.12. But if you put the cutoff grade up to 1 gram for an open pit resource, there's over 700,000 ounces sitting there at 2.3. These are big wide ore zones, and when you start looking at this from an open pit mining perspective, that is good high grade gold dirt for an open pit mine.
And then also, sorry to cut you, but compared to then because it's open pit, your costs go down?
Yeah, that's right. So obviously the cost per ounce will come down because the grade's higher. But just the geometry of this ore body lends itself to really good, efficient, high-grade mining. The ore zones are wide, they're continuous and well-defined, and there's 3 main higher grade zones in that. And when we look at it in detail, there's big ore panels in there that are probably over 5 grams a ton, and you can see that in the ounce per vertical meter profile for the deposit as well. In terms of why we reported it to a 0.3 cutoff, simply because we think that's about where the cutoff grade for this deposit is going to be based on the metallurgy. So we've done probably up to a pre-feasibility level of met on this deposit. We've had over 500 kilograms of material tested metallurgically here in Australia, and that was done using seawater, simply because we anticipate on using seawater in the processing plants. We have no water restrictions.
Right.
But the recoveries and the metallurgical behaviour of the ore out of Tenera is, I've never seen a gold deposit behave like this. So even at low grades, there's a high percentage reporting to gravity. The ore just, and whatever's left after gravity, just looks at cyanide and it goes straight into solution. So it's easily 1 into solution, and we can recover that. So that really makes a big material effect on that pulling that cutoff grade, and that's why we're reporting to a 0.3, and makes it so that pretty much anything in this deposit that's got grade in it is going to go through the mill.
Right. And so, you know, what we like is obviously, as you mentioned, you know, the size, scale, when you look at the grade versus cost, I think it's, you know, very impressive. Zeph, what should we look for over the next 12 months? You know, how are we going to get our teeth into this, so to speak?
Yeah, obviously the focus for us really is to reach critical mass on that resource size. And, you know, we're fairly confident internally. Obviously, when you go and drill these things out, there's a lot of areas that don't make it to the resource report that we release to the ASX. So that provides us some pretty low-hanging fruit if you'd like to go and put some more holes in and get that classified into the next resource upgrade. And we think the critical mass for this is probably somewhere around 1.6, 1.7 million ounces as total resources, but a big chunk of that in indicated, so close to 1 million ounces.
So that would be like a 60 or 70% increase.
Yeah, that's right. So that'll be the focus for us for Tenera. And the other area, which is the really exciting part, is finding another Tenera. So some of the work that our team's been doing are finding wide zones of gold in the right rocks over big distances, showing that this is an emerging district. So they're doing detailed work on that now with the intent to define those drill targets, and we'd hopefully be up there drilling, particularly up in the northwest part of northwest of Tenera. We've got a zone up there that's about 7 kilometres long, and pretty well where these rocks occur, there's anomalous gold. So we're pretty keen to get up there and drill those. Now, if we start getting some good hits out of that, then obviously there's a significant order of magnitude change for the scale of the project. So that's the main focus for the next sort of, I guess, 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
With a view to get to that critical mass on the resource that we can then say, okay, well, this is now at that scale where we think we can move it through to feasibility early next year.
I see. Okay. So really anytime kind of between now and calendar year end, but probably Q3, Q4.
Yeah, I'd expect to see a resource update out of Tenera probably well before the end of the year.
Okay.
And you know, when I went to Chile in April for the first time for a long time, obviously with the COVID restrictions, and which was a very good trip in terms of getting on the ground with the team and seeing how excited they are about these other targets. They actually think that Tenera is not the main game on this property. It could be on the edge of something much larger. So obviously that makes us very keen to go and drill test these other targets that they're finding.
Well, we certainly hope you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so do I. But all the indications are there. Geologically, it looks great. The gold's in the rock sticking out of the ground there. We've announced some of those results a couple of months ago, and they've gone back and doing detailed work to sort of shore up those drill targets. So for us, that's the real exciting bit. But also, we've got a pretty heavily de-risked asset in Tenera itself. Got a pretty clear pathway to continue to grow that resource base and move it through into feasibility.
Okay. And also, Zeph, just one more thing before any weather, there aren't any weather issues, are there then? Because it's inverted, right? Like it's their summertime.
No, so they're southern hemisphere, so their seasons are the same as Australia. But we're right on the coast, so low altitude, can work all year round, very stable climate, and obviously Atacama Desert's the driest place on earth, so average rainfall is like 7 millimeters a year. So if you wanted to build a gold mine and go exploring, this is the place to do it. The rocks stick out of the ground. We're close to the coast. We're close to roads. We're close to power. We're close to a port, and we've got, you know, a plus million ounce deposit sitting right there, ready to be developed. So, look, we're positive this is going to be a mine at some point. We just got to get it to the critical size where we think it's going to, you know, make a material difference to the market cap of the company, which it's not too far off doing.
So given that the raise has just occurred, you raised about 5.5. How much cash are you sitting on now?
So we're sitting on that 5.5 pretty much.
Okay,
Great.
And so I'm going to ask a question. It does annoy some MDs, and we do get complaints afterwards, but it is a crucial part of being a junior explorer. If I was to offer you an amount of cash, and forgetting about dilution, that you could have on your balance sheet, how much would, in an ideal world, how much would you like on the balance sheet?
But if we could capitalise the company to take it through to the end of feasibility, completion of the feasibility, which includes all the drilling to convert resources into measured, and all of that sort of thing, you'd be looking in the region of probably 25 million in total to make the final decision to mine and build.
Yep. Okay. Right. So there clearly will be more capital that will need to be raised.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's because of the scale of the growing project.
For sure.
When do you think that'll occur?
We'll be pretty right now until next year based on our exploration cost base. So we've got a few other things in the wind as well regarding tax refunds and so on, which are fairly material. So yeah, I'd expect sometime early next year.
Okay, right. And then when you finally are up to decision time and funding, do you think a lot of that will come from debt or equity, or have any of those discussions commenced?
There's certainly interest from a debt funding point of view, particularly in country from the local Chilean banks.
Yep.
They're always pretty keen to finance a new mine. So, you know, you've got to keep in mind that the people involved in running this company have developed and run mines before. So they're pretty plugged into a broad network of financing mechanisms and instruments. And we know how important it is to begin those conversations early with any potential financiers. So a lot of those conversations have been going on for a long time. And so people are keen to follow our progress. And, you know, at the end of the day, this project's looking like it's going to be, you know, to build it, including working capital, would be somewhere in the realm of 150 US million. So that doesn't preclude a junior from developing it. So you're not into $1 billion capex build or anything, and then it allows the optionality around a mixture of debt and equity to fund that.
Yeah, no doubt that Jeff's having some conversations up at the conference anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you know, again, you know, just to wrap it up, and you know, before just a Q&A, you know, we do think that it's the scale that what he has here, and also the fact that there are some upcoming milestones. We're looking for that upgrade, and we're looking for, you know, hopefully speaking the next Terranera on top of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we'll be on the ground the week. We'll be drilling the week after next. So we've got a very good relationship with our drilling contractor. So we don't have any delays in that. So you expect to start to see drill results flow pretty consistently through the remainder of the year. And we'll hopefully can start to point to that expansion as we go and announce those results, plus whatever we get out of the district work. We've also got a scoping study based on the current resource, which we're working on, and that should, we're hopeful will be ready to announce sometime in the next month to 6 weeks.
Got it. Okay, everyone, I may open it up for Q&A right now. Is that for just respectful of your time? Feel free to ask a question, take yourself off mute, or you can just send a message to Sean or I if you don't like to do it that way. Just one person is asking me regarding the scoping study. There's always a lot of, you know, debate about, is it worth the cost of investing into a scoping study versus just going, you know, right to a PFS, I suppose, with gold on an open pit, because it's not terribly complicated?
I think the important thing, and it's a market perception thing, is to start to demonstrate the cost of producing an ounce of gold out of this deposit in this part of the world, so that then people are able to compare it to similar assets in Australia that they're perhaps more knowledgeable about, and actually say, actually, this is a good value proposition for the company. and also allows the company then to talk about the economics of a future gold mine in this region because it's been disclosed to the ASX then. So at the moment, we're precluded from doing that because it hasn't been disclosed. And we're confident that, we're going to be at a relatively low production cost.
Yeah, I was going to say that, is it fair to say, and I know you have to be careful, that certainly given that it's open pit and large, that you'd be in the, the kind of bottom third quartile type of on a cost curve?
Yeah, potentially we're down there. Obviously that infrastructure advantage, the location of the deposit and everything is a major advantage, and the easy metallurgy.
Got it.
So if we just had a question come through about sovereign risk, how comfortable are you?
Very, very comfortable. So I think some of the issues that you might have seen reported in the English-speaking press around proposed changes in Chile have been rather sensationalised and poorly reported on. So the strong message that we get from the Chilean government and other institutions in Chile that represent the mining industry and so on is that Chile is open for business. Chile relies so heavily on foreign investment to develop mining projects and in the agricultural industry that we don't see that there'll be any significant change. Probably the only change that we may see is a slight increase to very large copper producers on their taxation regime. But to put that in context, their total tax burden will still be less than if they're operating the same mine in Australia. So Chile's a fantastic place to operate. It's very easy. As soon as you have those permits in your hand, you're good to go. And that's been evidenced by the work that we've been able to get done in a very short period of time. So we're confident that going forward, Chile's going to continue to be a good place to operate.
Right. Sway one here. One question is coming to me about the grades. Again, the grade of gold. He's saying that in Tenera is the scope there, the grade there, 2.31 grams. Is that higher than the average grade, or is there a potential for upgrade?
So there's two parts. If you continue to increase the cut-off grade, the grade goes up. And I think if you look in the resource announcement tables and also in the presentation tables, there's information around the grade at various cut-off grades. And I think it's over 3 grams. There's over 500,000 ounces sitting over 3 grams per tonne there off the top of my head. I haven't got it in front of me. So what it's telling us is that there's good high-grade zones within the ore body. But again, going back to that metallurgy, we're using a 0.3 cutoff to report the global resource inventory, if you like, simply because of the good met, getting us down to that 0.3 gram per tonne.
We just had a question from Brian. What is the potential for this to be a 10-bagger? If so, what makes you confident?
Well, we're always relying on geology to perform. And I think if we go and find another Tenera, which is potentially another 2 million ounce deposit, and as I said before, the geology is pointing us in that direction, that we haven't seen anything negative to suggest that there's not, but there's a potential for this to go from, so we've got 1.1 million ounces of JORC compliant resources now. As I said, the company's pretty confident that we've got a clear pathway to well beyond 1.5 million ounces. So let's round it out to 2 million ounces for Tenera. We find another 2 million ounce deposit, then you're looking at a 10-bagger.
Yep, absolutely.
Great.
Okay, everyone, we're just conscious of time. Zeph, we know, it's coming on at 1:30 Eastern time here. Zeph, thank you very much for your time. Anyone else, if you have questions, just let Sean and I know. We'll be sure to relay it into the company. We're thrilled to support you. Well done on the capital raise, and obviously, the fact that you're getting institutional support and interest from the overseas, highlights what you have, the asset on hand. So thanks.
Yep. Cheers, guys. Thank you. Thanks for everyone for joining.
Thanks, Zeph. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks for watching another episode of 180 Markets Off the Charts. If you want access to thousands of capital raises, sign up at 180markets.com.au and you'll get access to our very next capital raise. Thanks for watching.